Welcome to If These Pages Could Talk. Today we have another treat for you of an author-editor combination. We're also going to be talking about mythology and second chances and more. But first, I'm your host, Kiersten Marcil, author and adventurer into history. I'm here with my co-host,
Sevannah Storm Romance author.
And we'll introduce our editor next.
I'm Renee Wildes. I am an editor at Champaign, and I'm Eden's editor.
And without further ado, Eden, tell us about yourself.
Well, okay, Eden Robbins, and writing for Champaign Book Group and enjoying that very much. I've actually been writing for over 20 years, but this is a new cycle for me, and I'll probably talk more about that in a little bit, but this is the new chapter, if you will, of writing for me. So very excited to be here, and actually my first interview related to this book. So happy to be part of this. Yeah.
Yay. Oh, we're so glad to have you then. So we're going to kick it off with a game called Gorgon, God or Human. And I have some names of characters from Greek mythology, and Eden, Sev, and Renee are going to try to guess, are they the Gorgon, a god, or a human? We ready? Okay. First up is Artemis.
Should we just jump in, or okay?
Jump in.
I'd say God.
Yes, absolutely, God.
Yep. She is the goddess of the hunt. Up next is Theseus.
Human.
I'd say human as well.
You gonna concur, Renee? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, he is the king and founder of Athens. So depending on what version you read, he is either the son of Aegeus, who helped found Athens, or Poseidon. And he was his mother was Aethra. I don't know if my Greek is very good, but there we go.
Yeah, I wasn't sure where demigods fell into the scheme of things, if they were half god and half human.
Yeah, we're gonna call him human for this game. Yeah.
Okay.
Number 3, Medusa.
Gorgon.
Gorgon.
Yeah. And I didn't realize until I started researching, I thought all creatures were considered Gorgons, and they're not. Apparently just Medusa and her 2 sisters are Gorgons.
She was actually human and was cursed into being a Gorgon.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Sad. 4, Oedipus.
Human.
Yeah.
Yeah, referred to as Oedipus Rex. Yeah.
Yes.
He is human. He is the king of thieves, and he's where we get the Oedipus complex from, because he fulfilled a curse to kill his father, unknowingly kill his father and marry his mother.
Yes.
Ouch.
Painful.
And Greek was that was a rough ancient Greek. Wow. Rough time, rough stories, just rough all over. And it's gorgeous now. I would love to go. What a place to be. Okay, so our last one, Narcissus.
Human.
Yep.
Yep.
He is a human. He was a beautiful hunter from Boeotia. Well, I'm not sure how to say that. But he was so beautiful, he fell in love with his own reflection and perished by the side of a pool. So
serves him right.
Yeah.
some good lessons here for sure.
Yeah,
and what's really weird is Rome stole all of their mythology. So it wasn't bad enough the first time around. It had a whole reincarnation the second time around.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, that's so funny. Yeah.
Well, Eden, I love that you write Greek mythology, because I actually do reference it a couple times in my own books, just in the narration.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So yeah, so I had a lot with the fates in my second book, and the fates and the threads and which is funny because I write Rev War, but okay.
Huh. That's intriguing.
Yes, my narrator just keeps referring back to like the first book had a reference to Odysseus and feeling the call of the sirens, but she knew she had to resist it like Oedipus did. So I throw in a couple in there because I like Greek mythology too.
That's fun. Yeah, it is fun.
Yeah, definitely. Except my sons are far more better versed than I am. So
Oh, do they
correcting
like
me.
Greek mythology?
They do. Useful son, my oldest, is very into mythology from around the world. He is
Oh.
far better read than I am, and he has the greatest stories that he just rambles off the top of his head and presents that at school. And
Oh, very nice.
yeah,
Yeah, that's interesting.
all right, let's
Because
talk
I
about
think
you.
there's parallels. I was going to say there's,
Yeah.
oftentimes with myths, you'll see some overlap in different cultures. It's just kind of that same origin story comes into play. And so I find that fascinating. Yeah, I'd be interested to learn more about that for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's that human truth that carries through everybody's
Yes,
creation. And yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. Okay, so we started to talk about this when you introduced yourself, according to your bio.
Yes.
Your first book released in 2000.
Okay.
So you are a lifelong writer, would you say?
Yes, definitely. Both, formally, informally. I did a lot of journaling as a child, and then I went into school newspaper, kind of did more of that sort of thing, but always was writing stories or creating stories in my mind. And but never really thought about being a writer until I wrote my first book, which is kind of an interesting way to go about it. So kind of just started that way, dove into this book, was inspired by a death in my family, actually. And then that book, and then I was done and I wrote a book and I thought, this is interesting. I really like this process and I want to do more of it. So that's how it started, I guess, in a formal sense.
Yeah, no, you and I have a similar story. It was the same thing because I wrote in journals, but never thought of myself as a writer, dabbled a little short story here and there, and then decided to write a book. So very cool.
Yes.
Had you studied fiction writing up to that point when your first book came out?
No, I actually have my business degree, which different brain, so, different thinking for sure. I actually just kind of decided, I mean, I enjoy business, marketing, that sort of thing anyway. I mean, I definitely do. And I've dabbled in that since getting my education in that. But as far as writing, other than just loving literature classes in school and college and high school, I mean, I loved my literature classes and I love writing. But other than that, I really didn't start educating myself in writing until after I wrote the first book. And then I thought, I'd like to get better at this. Let me learn a little bit more about this. So it was through workshops and conferences and classes and things like that after my first book. So
That's cool. Do you find that your marketing background helps you market your books?
I think it does. Yes, I think so now. I think when I was younger and my first book came out, I tend to be more of an introvert in general. So the marketing part and as far as the online community at that point wasn't where it is now. And so there was a lot of in-person marketing going on. And so I was definitely timid. And I think so it didn't serve me as far as marketing then. But I grew into it over time. And definitely, I think the marketing education helped me think of things in a different way in terms of putting my book out there and putting my name out there and so forth. That came into play later, but yeah, it was helpful and is actually. So
I kind of
That's
miss the good old days when everything was in person. The social media was such a learning curve for me. I think it's a generational thing. Like my kids can just snap through all of these. It was harder for me.
Yeah. I really loved it. I thought this is a great opportunity and I don't have to be face to face with people. Let me do this, this is fun. So I loved that. And I liked being able to get things out to the world without having to leave my desk, and that to me is just such a pleasure still. So, but yeah, I mean, there was a learning curve. I think you're right, Renee. And at the same time, for me, it was a really big opportunity that I tried to dive into and make the most of for sure.
Do you go out with your book now? Do you do any in person at this point?
Well, the book just came out, so I haven't really, other than friends, talk. Oh, I love pugs. I'm just gonna say it. I don't have one right now, but two of mine died within a year, and I haven't gotten another
Oh.
one since. But I just every time I see a pug, I'm distracted. Sorry. Pug. All right. So no, I haven't done a lot of
Okay.
in-person marketing at this point, but that is a plan. I do reach out to a lot of friends, and I have a newsletter that I send out, but that's not in person. But I'd love to actually do more. I'm kind of the idea now, because I'm much more outgoing than I was. So I think the idea of going to a bookstore or other event and talking to people and signing and that sort of thing is intriguing to me. And I think I'd actually enjoy it in a different way now. So that's a plan for sure.
So your book that we're talking about today, this is your first book into your, how do you want to say, your second chance, I think is how you call it.
Yes, Heart of a Warrior is actually my first dive, I guess, into my second chance. Strangely enough, this is a book that I wrote over 10 years ago.
Wow. Okay.
So I don't think Renee knows that either. I don't
No,
think
I'm like, really?
yeah, and before I started querying, I mean, I tried to go in and clean up some of the stuff related to kind of that dated the book, and I think hopefully I did okay with that. I think, but I wrote it sort of during my first phase of writing, and then sent it out to a few people, and it didn't really take at that point. Wasn't a lot of interest in Greek mythology, I think. And so just kind of put it in the drawer, put it away, and then just decided to take it out again and see what happened. So
Oh, okay. So you do talk about in your bio, your second chance. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
well, sure, absolutely, because I feel like I've been lucky enough to have some definite second chances, some great second chances in my life. So my first phase of writing, I wrote paranormal romance and futuristic romance, and let's see, how many books did I have? I think I had 8 books out at that point, or 8 stories. I think 2 were novellas, and then there were 9. So there were 7 full-length novels I had out in this previous writing life, and then 2 novellas. And so I was really starting to market at that point. I was getting more comfortable with it, and I had my books out, doing a lot of RWA functions actually, because these were romances. And I got divorced, and it was kind of painful. And so, and I wish, it's interesting because I had an author friend who also had been divorced not too long before me, and she just said, keep writing, don't stop writing. And I didn't listen. Sorry, my cat up here getting into everything.
It's Animal Day.
And so anyway, I stopped. I sort of, just kind of did it sporadically, didn't really, I couldn't focus, to be honest. That's what happened. And
Yeah.
so I just let it go to the wayside, and I took a new direction in my life. I went into project management for like technical projects, digital projects, which was fascinating and interesting, and became a project and a program manager for about 10 years. I did that. Now I would write occasionally in between, the first phase and the second, but nothing really formal. And so it was always sort of burning there. That's my cat here. Say hi, and then I'm going to put you down. Say hi, real quick.
Aw.
Okay. And so after about 10 years, I just realized I need to get back to my heart. I need to get back to my writing. There's just something missing. And I guess I just needed that period of time to figure things out and figure myself out, I guess, in a lot of ways. Still not figured out, but working on it. But anyway, so had an opportunity to get back to my writing, and made the decision to stop the project management and write full time. And luckily I was in a situation where I was able to do that at that point, and just got back to it. And so I spent about 4 years writing a novel, not this one that just came out, but another one, which was not a romance, is not a romance, but more of a serious kind of cultural testament about our society, and it's very kind of a different direction for me. And I wrote that, and it was very learned a lot from that experience because it was a different genre. I ended up working with a writing mentor, which I hadn't done before, and just learning more about writing and how I write. And luckily, my writing mentor was very plain spoken. I'll just say that. And didn't, was just super willing to just tell me the way it was and is with my writing. And so I learned so much from her, and so thankful for her. And so it was at times a difficult journey getting back to writing because I really had to take a hard look at how I wrote and sort of think about that. But then it also just felt so rewarding to keep learning and honing my skills and just kind of learning, more about the craft. And then I don't know what made me decide to pull out Heart of a Warrior amidst all of that, but oh, I know what it was. I started looking at online pitch events, which I had never done before. All of my my querying had been in person, and I hadn't ever done any kind of online querying before. So I thought, well, I'm going to try a pitch event. So Twitter has it. There's other websites. I don't know if any of you have done the online. I'm guessing so. But this was a new thing. I thought, oh, how exciting. So I thought, okay, well, let me think about this. So I pitched the book I had been working on for about 4 years, and it hasn't blossomed into anything yet. It's a very I think the subject's very touchy. I won't go into it unless you want at some point, but it's sort of a touchy subject. And so I decided to look at what else I could offer. And so I found Heart of a Warrior, went in and did some, cleanup and updating and things like that, and then pitched a couple of times, a couple of pitch events. And then I ended up with Champagne Book Group saying, we're kind of interested, like, tell us more about it. So so that became my second chance. And I'm just so thrilled to be able to dive back into my writing in this way, and excited to have somebody interested in my writing again. So
Yeah, this kind of stuff is right up my alley.
That's great. Yeah, it's awesome. I'm so glad there seemed to be some interest in Greek myths at this point, Greek, with stories. So that was, I think, good timing. It worked out well too for me in terms of this. So yeah. So that was a long explanation, but that's in my writing. This is my second chance for sure.
That's great. And it's awesome that you took it, because not everybody takes the second chance when it's shown to them. So that's fantastic.
Yes. Strong believer in doing it, because why not?
Yeah.
Why not?
Good for you. Renee, were you part of that pitch event, or how did you come to meet Eden?
I think.
I'm trying to think.
It may have been
I
Kathy.
haunt all the pitch events. I'm the first one in CBG management to go, hey, this pitch event is coming up. Are we doing this or what? I'm always looking for new stuff. Probably drive Cassie up a wall. But yeah, I was all gung-ho when Eden signed and got to meet Demeter and
Yes.
Cool.
Yes, the crew.
Okay. Well, why don't we, because now we've been teasing for almost a half hour, why don't you tell us what Heart of a Warrior is?
Sure. So Heart of a Warrior is the story of Pandora reborn in modern day, and what that looks like. And it kind of, I was sort of curious, at, thinking, okay, so Pandora, she released all of this misery into the world, and it was a pivotal moment, and as far as the myth goes. Then what? Like, what happened to her? And I know a little bit based on my research of sort of there's different stories about what happened to her, but just kind of curious, and started thinking, well, what if she had a second chance, right? What if she had a second chance to return to the earthly plane and do something with her life? And so this is kind of a redemption story in many ways, a personal growth story in many ways. So it's kind of her story about being reborn as Pandora, and then the choices that she has to make in her life to move forward. Because as we probably all know, when it comes to having an opportunity related to the gods giving us something, there's strings attached. There's always strings attached. And so Pandora has some pretty rough strings attached that she has to adhere to be able to just be on Earth and be alive and have a life. And so this is kind of the story of how she goes about that. And she ends up having to take on a mission that she wouldn't have normally wanted to take on. And it's very opposed to who she is as a person in this modern day compared to who Pandora was supposedly, and according to the myth. So yeah, so it's kind of a redemption story and a second chance story for sure.
Maybe you could share just a little bit about the hero's relationship to her then and now, because he also has quite the growth arc.
Yes, he does. So the hero's name is Philoctetes. We call him Phil in the story, but so he's a gold warrior. So if you read through some of Greek myth, you'll see that when Gaia created the world, humans were not first, as we know, to be part of the world. There were other beings, including these gold warriors and these silver warriors. And the gold warriors became, I guess, beneficent spirits that help mankind. And so Phil was part of that group, and he ended up getting into trouble with the gods and getting sent to Tartarus and having to figure out what to do then, and was eventually allowed to come back to Earth, the earthly plane, with strings attached, of course, and was given a mission and a duty to carry out. And so his story ties in very strongly with Pandora, and their first meeting isn't necessarily a happy one, because there's a lot of animosity based on history and myth related to that. But so the two of them end up meeting and then going on this journey together. And there's a lot of tension, of course, between them. And there's a lot of kind of forbidden aspects of their relationship that they have to adhere to if they want to stay alive and stay on Earth. And as we learn very quickly in the story, part of that is they cannot be intimate with each other. They cannot be, and there's this chemistry between them. But if they are intimate, there's a lot of consequences related to that. And so there's this push and pull, and it's a lot of fun, actually.
Cool. How do you label the genre of this book? It sounds like you've got a lot of umbrellas going on here.
Yeah, I still would consider it either a paranormal romance or a fantasy. I think it's kind of a combination. Yeah, I think so. But of course, there's some history there, myths, that sort of thing. So kind of a combination, I would say. Yeah, probably a fantasy.
Cool.
With definite romantic elements.
I was just going to ask you about that. How spicy would you say the story is, from like Hallmark sweet all the way up to ghost pepper spicy? Where does
it it depends on who you ask, I would say.
Renee?
It's pretty hot. There's a lot of strong chemistry, but if you're dealing with bedroom scenes, because it's forbidden, they can't ever go there.
Yeah.
But they definitely feel it. I would definitely say it's a hot book. And it's not a finished story. There's a sequel coming.
Yes. Yes.
So I have yet to see how it's going to be resolved, but it's definitely not Hallmark.
No, it's not. I would agree. I would agree. And it is part of a series, because there's a lot to unpack with Greek mythology. I mean, there's just a lot. And as we progress through the story and the series, more faces that we might recognize from Greek mythology come into play. And I love that. That's what part of my, I guess one of my favorite parts of this series is just being able to bring in these myths into the story in a modern day setting and have them play, and it's so fun and I love it. And so that actually grows and continues throughout the series. Yeah, so it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
Do you have a passage that you can share with us?
I do. Let me bring it up and I will read that to you. Let's see. Where are we? All right. Here we go. Panic skittered at the edge of Dora's mind as the darkness enveloped them, but she shoved it away, keeping her breathing and heart rate under control. The cave opened up the deeper they went, almost slamming into Phil's back as he came to an abrupt halt. She took the opportunity to shine her flashlight around them. The chamber where they now stood was immense, with ceilings that reached high into the darkness above. Turning around, she flashed the light behind them. Her heart almost leapt out of her throat as she caught a movement in the corner of her eye. Had she really seen something, or were the darkness and her flashlight playing tricks on her? There are others, Dora, Phil said, answering her unspoken question. Stay close to me and remain watchful. Phil didn't need to worry about that. She wasn't about to wander away. Stepping back until her back bumped into his, she took a wary look around. Running her flashlight's beam along the bumps and ridges of the cave wall, she tried to discern what was out there. What did you see? She whispered. Why she kept her voice low was beyond her. The quiet confines of the cavern lent no privacy. Whatever she was saying, it heard them. Don't speak. I need to listen, Phil said, not bothering to keep his voice down. Listen. Maybe she needed to do the same in her own way. Closing her eyes, Dora opened herself up and waited. Nothing. She grew anxious. Had her ability deserted her again? Something hummed through her mind, faint, barely there, but she let it wash over her. Pinpointing to its very essence, she was able to hold it for a short space of time. Power, so strong it almost knocked her over. It hit her in giant waves. Be careful, Phil, it's very, very powerful. I know, he said. Weariness shot through Dora. You know, she asked. Was he empathic too? Yes, but how? Let's just say it's a friend, he answered. Friend, is that what we are now, warrior friends? The female voice boomed from Dora's right. She swung her flashlight in that direction, almost dropped it. The woman who emerged from the shadows was tall, athletic, and lean, with a face some would call strong and arresting rather than beautiful. She closed the distance between them, graceful as a gazelle. I meant no disrespect, my goddess. Phil sketched a quick bow. I take none, Philoctetes. The woman kept her gaze locked on Dora as she stopped in front of her and studied her face. The goddess, Demeter. Dora remembered her clearly from her previous life. The goddess was as unforgettable as she was powerful. Judge, gift giver, and protector of mankind, her even disposition was well known by all. That was why the huge rush of anger emanating from her was both surprising and frightening. Hanging around an angry goddess too long never ended well.
Yay! Nice. That's great. Thank you so much.
Riveting.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, it's
Awesome.
fun. It's so fun. I love writing about this stuff.
A lot
so.
of stuff happens in caves.
It does, yes. It does. It's
Are
very
you-
symbolic because this is, her journey starts out in the dark, literally, but it also is just symbolic of of rebirth and kind of starting out in the unknown. And so I love that theme. And so I was really happy to incorporate that in that way. So.
Are you claustrophobic? Do you like caving?
I actually enjoy this. What took place at Kartchner Caverns, which is in southern Arizona, and I really loved it. I enjoyed going there. So I mean, the caves there were so immense. I did not feel claustrophobic. However, I will say, on a personal note, I did have an MRI not too long ago and did not enjoy that experience. So was pretty fearful of that and had to sort of really prep for it. So in that sense, I felt somewhat claustrophobic, but other than that, I don't usually experience it. So
That's so cool that you have an actual place that you've thought of as your inspiration for that.
Yeah. It's a pretty amazing cavern to go to. So it left an impression. Absolutely. Yeah. It's fun.
Did you visit it because of the story, or had you been there before?
No, I just visited it because it was fun and it was someplace in Arizona that I could travel. I love road trips, so I thought, let me just head down there and see it. And it left a really strong impression. Just the experience of, if I don't know if you've gone into these kind of caverns before, but the experience of they have to be very careful to maintain the environment in these caverns because of the stalagmites, stalactites. So there's a process in getting in to like make sure we're clean when we go in, that sort of thing. And
Wow.
yeah, it's just a kind of surreal experience. And I went, you were talking about Greece earlier. I actually visited Greece a few years ago and went to another cavern. And I'm trying to think where it was exactly, but same experience, just very surreal. And so, yeah, if you haven't done it, it's a fun. I would recommend doing it because it just is different and kind of eerie, but also fascinating.
Yeah. We live near Howe Caverns. They're not too far from us. And I am claustrophobic, so that it takes a
Oh.
full minute to ride the elevator down the shaft to get to the
Yeah.
cavern.
Yeah.
But like you said, it's beautiful underneath. It's a whole different world. They take you on a boat ride in the underground lake. And then when they
Yeah.
take you to the waterfall where they stop, they turn off the light to show
Oh.
you that your eyes will never adjust to the darkness. It's too far underground. And
Yeah.
it's the craziest, scariest thing. But the rock formations, like you said, with the minerals are just gorgeous.
So
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, that's a good school. Very nice.
Awesome. All right, I am going to turn it over to Renee because Renee has some questions for you about she's looking at me like, what are you talking about?
She's gonna
You
have
are going
you
to
read
my
it.
questions because I don't have them in front of me.
Yep.
Okay, so
Yep.
okay, I will read them for you, Renee.
That's why I was looking at you so weird. I'm like, I don't. We did this yesterday. I didn't have them done either.
I know. Okay, so and for our audience who wasn't with us at a prior interview, we like when we have our editors and authors together, we only just get to talk to our editors through email, so it's really fun to have a chance to just talk.
Yes.
So Renee's questions for you, Eden, are first, well, she wanted to know what inspired this new spin of Pandora's box. I'm trying to think if we've really kind of answered that fully.
Kind of did.
We kind of did. Okay, we'll move that one ahead. What's your favorite myth?
I love the story of Persephone. I mean, I just do. I think she represents so much, just her story about rebirth, about the cycle of life. Also, depending on the version that you'll read, also about resilience. And I just love the themes associated with her and sort of what she went through. And then also I love family dynamics. I love kind of looking at family dynamics, and Heart of a Warrior has some interesting family twists to it. Let's just say that make it, I think, a little more complex, complicated. And of course, if you think about the idea of Persephone and Demeter, mother-daughter, and the relationship that they shared and what they had to go through in that relationship, it's fascinating to me too. So I think that's just such a rich myth. I just love her story and sort of what happens, and then how she how she survives and what choices that she makes despite the external circumstances that have been imposed upon her. So, yeah.
So is there going to be a Persephone story?
Persephone is in Heart of a Warrior. She's actually Dora's BFF. So,
Oh, cool.
yeah. So she comes into play, and more will come from that. So, yeah. Yes.
Do you know at this point how many books will be in your series?
Originally, I kind of steered toward 5. We'll see, but that's that's possibly the direction. Yeah, possibly 5. There's just so many, there's so much I'm just, the deeper I go into it, sort of the more that comes out of it. And then I get very, invested in the new or the Greek myths that come into play during the story that start interacting with the other characters. And so I started wanting to write more about that. There's, there's just all sorts of fun. The fun thing for me, what I love the best about this is really just bringing these characters in, letting the reader get to know them, but in a modern context that's very relatable as a human. And that these myths have their issues. They have they go to therapy, some they just have stuff going on that we as humans do. And how fun that is for me to be able to write them in this way. I don't know, I love that.
Plus, it's fun to see these ancient people trying to deal with like modern technology and
Yes.
modern mindsets. It's just fun making these old buddy-duddies just adapt. They have no choice. Things are not what they thought they were, and it's just fun to make them twist.
Yeah, it shows their they're not human per se, but it kind of shows a human quality to them that I think a reader could really have fun with and enjoy learning more about. Yeah. So
Cool. Is there a Greek mythology retelling that you've enjoyed outside of obviously your own series?
well, that's a good question. I'm not going to remember the author's name, and I feel bad about that. Sorry. But there was actually a series about Persephone and Hades that came out recently, probably in the last 2 years. Oh, I wish I had the name. And I loved it. It was a 2-book series. And oh my gosh, she just played with these themes in a way that blew my mind away. And she really dove into each character and the dynamic that they share, because they have a very complicated relationship, and it can go lots of different ways. He's basically has forced her to be in Hades. Hades has forced her to be in hell basically for 6 months out of every year. Made a pact with Zeus. So how does that reflect on a marriage, because they're husband and wife? So how does that come into play? So anyway, she did a fabulous job with this story, and I wish I knew her name.
A Touch of Darkness?
Is that a 2-book? That might be. Is it a 2-book series?
No, it actually looks like it's a 4-book. Scarlett
maybe
St.
I'm
Clair?
missing.
Does that ring a bell?
I don't think so.
All right, I'll keep looking.
Dude, I'm sorry.
I threw you with that question. I didn't
On a mission.
tell you.
No, but I would love to tell people to read her stuff, because if you love Greek myth, because again, lots of characters come into play, so it's so fun. So if I think of it, I'll mention it. It's important. Yeah.
Now, if this is a spoiler, you stop me. But when I originally read Pandora's Box, I read it in like a children's collection of stories. So,
Right.
what in your universe came out of the box after all of the badness?
So from my perspective, and what I, kind of the choice I made to go with that is the only thing left in the box was hope.
Okay.
And so I decided to use that as an opportunity. And that's in Gold Heart of a Warrior, because she starts out in a place of hopelessness and ends up, I won't give it away, but she ends up, kind of using that as an opportunity, or taking advantage of that as an opportunity, and growing from there. And hope evolves, I think, through the story for herself and through other people within her orbit. Yeah. So.
Oh, yeah, because that was one where, as an adult, I learned that there were different versions, like different endings, and I didn't know if that was just my kid's version that had a different ending, or
Yes.
yeah. Speaking of useful son, because I was going to put into my second book a reference to the boy who shuddered, and it's a Grimm's fairy tale, and he goes out to learn how to shudder, how to fear. And he finds out in the version I know, thanks to Jim Henson's The Storytellers, he comes home to find out that the love of his life is dying, and so he shudders and he fears, and that's the end. And so I was going to put that reference in my second book. And then my son goes, oh, no, 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 no. That is not how the real version ends.
Oh,
And it's got this very
yeah.
sexual assault kind of ending to it,
Oh,
but
geez.
not of her. And so I'm like,
Oh,
oh, okay, that is not going to my son.
interesting. Yeah.
Kind of
So
nice
I-
having a personal research assistant.
I know, thank God he was so well versed in that, because I was all
Yeah.
set to. So I pulled it way back and I didn't reference which story I was talking about in my book. So it's
Yeah.
still there, but it's not.
Yeah, you have to be careful for sure because there are so many versions. I know the new Little Mermaid is coming out in theaters, right?
Mhm.
And
Right.
so I was looking at some stuff related to that, and of course the Disney version, there's a happy ending and so forth. And the original version that I read about, and I'm assuming I'm not giving anything away, but the original version, they actually, the Little Mermaid's Ariel's tongue gets cut out, so she can't speak. Whereas in the Disney version, it's just kind of like she's made mute, right?
Yeah.
And so her tongue gets cut out, and then she doesn't end up with the prince in the end anyway. He goes and he marries somebody else, and she kind of like just goes on her way and dies, basically, is what
Right.
happens.
Discrimination.
Home.
It's tongue discrimination.
You what?
Yeah.
It's tongue
what?
discrimination. Just because she
Yeah.
doesn't have a tongue, he doesn't marry her. I'm telling you,
Yes.
I oppose
Thank you.
this.
Yeah.
Yes. So
Yeah.
it's interesting, the different versions that are out there.
Right. Yeah. I remember when The Hunchback of Notre Dame came out, and such a big deal was made through the media about that one, because, oh, he gets the girl, but he doesn't get the girl in the Disney video just because they end in a good place. But in the real book, in the real story, he does get Dismelda, and they do go off together. And
Oh,
very, yeah, very
interesting.
different. Right. Right. So, do any of the characters from our Icebreaker appear in your book?
Yes. I'm trying to think. Yes, but in actually Medusa comes into play, but she's in the second book. She's not in the first one. And I think Artemis may come into play in a later story as well.
Renee, close
So
your
those
ears.
two, yeah. I'm sorry?
Renee must close her ears. Spoiler alert.
Nope.
Medusa's so fun. I mean, she's just, how could I not have her part of the group, part of the party? She's just got so much baggage and so much stuff going on that and I loved being able to place her again in modern day and show sort of a humanness to her. And what would that look like? What would that look like for a Gorgon, So, yeah. So she comes in, Renee knows, I think, but yeah, she comes into play next.
Surprise.
So,
If you didn't know already, you do now. Oh,
yeah.
that's cool. So now you have some questions for Renee.
Whoa.
Uh-oh. Let me get my sheet. Well, I kind of know, but basically, I would say I would want to know, what's the most rewarding part of being an editor for you? Like, what do you like the best about it?
I like taking a really awesome idea and a really fabulous story and just prettying it up and polishing it up and trying to make it the best it can be. And I always try to tell my authors when there's a bone of contention about certain points that it's not personal. I'm not trying to be mean. I might be seeing things from a slightly different perspective. That's just my idea of what may work to make something better. But I always try to be flexible and open-minded, and hopefully when author and editor are like this far apart on a idea, we can meet somewhere in here. It's definitely a give and take, but
Yeah.
I like the process. I like seeing what can become.
Right. So other question, kind of the other side of it, what's the most challenging part of being an editor, would you say, for you?
Because you're dealing with somebody's baby. I mean, anytime you ask something to be cut or changed, it's hard because I am an author. I've been there. You know, when an editor goes, "Hey, I think you should do blah," your gut reaction is at first to go, "What?" So it's always, you know, take a step back, take a day, think about it, and then come back to it.
It's about a
It's-
day.
Yeah, that
It's
24-hour
hard to
rule
make
is so
somebody make
important.
changes.
Yeah.
Because Renee is also my editor.
Oh, okay. There you go. So you know, okay.
Yeah, I know. I need a day. Give me a day.
Yeah.
Give it a day.
Yeah.
Give it a day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I try not to be tough, but I've seen too many final editions go to Cassie, and then Cassie sends it back, and she's got way more than I'm comfortable with her finding. So I
Mm.
try to be the bad guy now so that you get this
Yeah.
nice happy email from Cassie.
Yeah, I'm the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, my editor had a lot of those. Yeah, I know, but Cassie's gonna tell you.
Yup.
Yeah, Cassie's gonna tell you. Like, "Oh."
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's something that, well, just for me over time has become, I mean, I still have my moments when my hackles rise, of course, but I think that, especially because this is a second time around sort of thing for me, I really want, and based on my work with my mentor over that 4-year period, I know that my editor is trying to help make this the best story possible. And so I need to, for me, just try to remind myself of that. And I try to do that and know that that's where this is coming from.
Yeah. I've said this story before, I think, on this show, but I give print copies of my book to my beta readers. And I have one who I could not write without her. She's so great, but she's like brutal. And so I'll read through it and I take my pen and I like red mark, little comments back to her that nobody will ever see. It'll never see the light of day. She'll never see, but it's just for me. So I can get that gut reaction out and then
Yes.
deal objectively with the comments later.
I love that. I love that process. That makes so much sense.
It's so helpful. And then too, I always have an electronic version and a print version of my books so that when I'm revising like that last time, if I need to reference something I did earlier, I've got a copy that's right there on my desk. I just find it easier when you're trying to rework a section and have multiple sections that all get impacted to have that print. Yeah,
There you go.
that's gorgeous with the beautiful cover. Exactly.
Nice. Yeah, that's great. I love that.
Very cool. All right, we're running out of time, but I want to make sure that Eden, we get that last question to Renee because it's a good one, and I think our audience will appreciate it.
Can you remind me what that was?
Sure. So Renee, her question to you was, if you could offer one word of advice to the authors that you work with, what would it be?
Thank you.
And sounds like one. No. Soapbox. One.
One word.
One word.
Oh gosh.
No,
No.
maybe not one word.
Give us
one
multiple words,
piece.
please.
Yes, a piece of
I
advice.
want the one word.
Do you have a word for us, Sam? Does
I
it start with
can
an F?
think of two. Can I have two words?
Diligence is my word.
Ah,
Open-minded and flexible.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I like
Because
it.
it's a relationship, it's a give and take. It's very hard to work with somebody that is closed-minded and inflexible, that doesn't want to make changes when you know something could be tweaked. So
Right.
yeah.
Or
Stay
doesn't want to
open-minded
work
and
on their
flexible.
craft.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
that's
gets
true.
me. If you don't want to work on their craft.
Yeah. I really, it makes me sad sometimes when I see through the writing community where someone's like, I got an R&R, I'm not doing that. I'm like, oh, wait.
Yeah.
That's like, you're so close.
Yes.
You just have to be open-minded to the
Yes.
process. And right now you're telling this person no. And so you're going to get it no. Like, don't do that.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's an
see,
opportunity.
R&Rs, I think of one as an opportunity. You are this close, but it's also a test if the person is willing to edit and change and work with us.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So if the
Mhm.
R&R doesn't go well, we know it's going to be a contentious relationship and we may not want to pursue it. So
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's a good
Yeah.
point. Yeah,
Yeah.
very much so. And that's also, there's a lot of benefit. I was just going to say for new writers too, you know, for me, I think it was helpful to just keep putting my work out there and in lots of different forms. And especially like, which may, I don't know if you all have done this, but putting my work out in the form of either, you know, magazine articles, journal articles, short stories, because that's a really great microcosm of my work that someone can like get their hands around and give me feedback in a way that will you know have an overarching effect on my larger work. So, you know, as far as writers go, I mean, I think sometimes that can be overlooked. You know, it's like I'm writing this novel, this is what I do, and this is what I want to put out there. Whereas these little bites can be helpful in learning. And that's what I found help, you know, progress and improve my writing in these small bites. So
Yeah. Great advice.
And they're harder.
Oh,
Every
yeah,
word
can
counts on the smaller bites.
Yes, that's a good point.
mm-hmm,
It's a very good point.
Oh, ladies, this has been wonderful, and we're out of time. So thank you so much. Please, Eden, tell us how to find you online.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to be here too. This has been wonderful. So you can find my author website is edenrobbins.info, and social media, Books by Eden, I think pretty much across the board. There might be one that's Eden Robbins author. I have to double check, but Books by Eden. And then I have another site, and we didn't get to talk about it today, and that's fine, but they cross over, and it's my, I do some mentoring for people, and that website is awholeheartedme.com. And you're welcome to check that out. There's again some crossover with creativity writing and mentoring. That's and you can learn more about my books there as well. So
That's a wonderful page too. I really enjoyed reading that on your website. So
thank you.
I highly encourage everyone to go there. We'll put all of our links below so you know how to find us. And I did notice there's another Eden Robbins author out there. So definitely follow the links below.
Yes, please do. Because she just had a new book come out too. So yeah, so there's some crossover there. So
Oh
yeah.
gosh.